Correct substrates. Let's do that again. Welcome to episode 45 of Bonding and Beer. This is your host, Rolando Nunez, and today's topic is mechanical retention to the tooth structure. Yo, last episode was mechanical retention to indirect substrates. Today, it is to the tooth structure. Let's go. Well, thank you for joining us. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And what has Rolando been up to? Well, let me tell you something. The weather is clearing up here in Chicago. It's getting much better, even though this is Illinois and we might get a snow storm any day. But for the most part, weather is getting much, much better. I have a lot of events that are scheduled for my food trailer, for my smash burger food trailer. And we're going to be, just going around the suburbs here where I live, attending different events. And hopefully it's going to be a great season. Let me tell you a story. I live in a village called Arlington Heights. And I have a business license to work in that village. So I can basically park in certain spots around the village and serve people for a specific amount of time. I was contacted by a dispensary and they asked me if I can park the trailer close to where they are. So they would, offer the food trailer goodies, the smash burgers, to their customers. Now remember, the people that go to a dispensary, they're a bunch of stoners. Stoners are great. They come out of the dispensary with a bag of goodies. They come to the food trailer and get some smash burgers. It is great for business. And I got to tell you, remember to like, to follow, right? You can find us on Instagram, at Bonding and Beer. You can find us on YouTube, Bonding and Beer. In the video description, in YouTube, there is a link where it will take you to our website. You can subscribe to our podcast through any of the platforms available, Apple Music, Google Podcast, or Spotify. You can send us an email, bondingandbeer@gmail.com. Let's go, baby. All right, man. So listen, we're going to be talking about mechanical retention to the tooth structure. Jeremy and I discussed the whole topic of mechanical retention, and based upon the amount of information that we wanted to share with you guys, we thought it was more convenient to split it up into two episodes. We have the mechanical retention to indirect substrates such as emax and zirconia, and the mechanical retention to the tooth structure. Doing everything in one episode could have been cumbersome. Could have been like too much information in just one episode. So that's why we broke it down. Now, what do we want you guys to get out of this episode, right? Well, we want to talk about the importance of mechanical retention to the tooth structure. So it all goes back to the impact of mechanical retention on bonding, on the bonding procedure, okay? And also the differences between the two substrates that we're going to generate mechanical retention on, which are dentin and enamel, and how to achieve the proper mechanical retention to each one of these substrates, okay? That's basically it. We're going to break down how to do it properly and how to do it effectively. However, before we get any deeper, let's crack open this beer. Let's see what Jeremy, the producer, brought us today. Come on. All right, so today's beer is called Obligatory by Buffalo Creek Brewing. This is a West Coast IPA. It's a tall boy, and it has, it's an interesting can. Buffalo Creek Brewing is located in Long Grove, Illinois. There's an interesting story about this beer. Usually Jeremy selects the beers, but I had an event where I served burgers at this brewery. This is located 15 minutes away from my house. And there is this contract. It's unwritten that I will provide some burgers to the guys who are attending the place. There were like 5 guys, and I gave each one of them a burger, and they gave me some free beer. I gave them burgers for free. I got free beer. So I got this guy, and I brought a 4-pack, and I gave Jeremy some, and Cam and Chase, and I got one here for today. This is an IPA, like I said. The can is, half of it is green, half of it is white. The logo of Buffalo Creek Brewing. It's got a little, like a little image of hops in it, and it is a 7%. So we are going to enjoy this bad boy. The brewery's beer description goes like: classic West Coast IPA, dry hopped with refreshing citrus and pineapple notes. A West Coast IPA, it's got a different punch than your regular IPA. So let's see how this guy actually, how it looks, how it smells, and how it tastes. I'm going to open it right here and make that beautiful sound to declare the beginning of a wonderful summer. Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. I can feel the citrus just by opening it, okay? I'm going to pour it, and I'm going to do a good job, Jeremy. I'm going to do a good job. I'm doing a fantastic job, Jeremy. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Woo-hoo-hoo, let's go. Come on. Let's go. That's how you do it, my guy. I haven't done one of those in a while, all right? So the beer looks dark for an IPA. It's not yellow. It's more like amber, right? It's dark amber. I wouldn't say it's hazy. It's not hazy at all. It's just dark, right? The foam is great. You can smell the citrus, you can sense it, but it's not overpowering, okay? It's not overpowering. And let's have a taste.
Sip, 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 sip.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. This is punchy. This is IPA. Absolutely. Good job. Buffalo Creek Brewing, I'll give you my opinion and the final score at the end. And of course, it's not the same if I give it a score now that if I give it a score at the end of the episode, because I will be under the influence. Let's go. When you think about mechanical retention, that's how bonding started. If you think about the mechanical retention to enamel. I just saw a comment by one of our followers in our latest reel where I was talking about Dr. Suh and his impact on dentistry, specifically on adhesive dentistry, restorative dentistry. He was saying, well, Michael Bonacuore is the one who, was responsible for the introduction of bonding, basically, through mechanical retention on the enamel through phosphoric acid etching. And that is true. If somebody deserves a Nobel Prize regarding, the impact that you've had in the lives of so many in dentistry, restorative dentistry, Michael Bonacuore deserves that. He basically discovered mechanical retention to the enamel through phosphoric acid etch. It went through so many different phases in how it was done, the different concentrations of phosphoric acid. We went from 10% to 15% to 20%, and then we jumped to the 30%, where you have 32, 35, 37%. Even 40% was available at one point. In today's day and age, anywhere between 32, 35, and 37% is basically what you're going to find. You don't need to go higher than that, and you don't really need to go lower than that. And we have shown that doing mechanical retention on enamel using phosphoric acid in these concentrations, any of these concentrations, is going to be just fine. The phosphoric acid basically creates micro roughness on the enamel. And it has been proven that is the most effective way to generate mechanical retention on enamel, okay? It is very simple. It is very cost effective. Phosphoric acid is available everywhere. And there are differences between, phosphoric acids of different brands, However, it is important to understand that mechanical retention to enamel has to be predictable, has to be reproducible, and has to be effective, okay? Because through the enamel is where the seal of the restoration happens, okay? So that became about in the 50s with Professor Michael Bonocore out of New York. That's where it came about.
Sip, sip, sip.
Now, the mechanical retention to dentin is a little different now because it came from, for so many years, dentin was not touched with any sort of acid because it was believed that the acid will kill the pulp. However, Professor Fusayama basically figured this out. And I did talk a little bit about this in previous episodes, right? Professor Fusayama introduced total etch into the world. He basically was able to, his research showed that you can etch dentin with phosphoric acid in order to remove the smear layer and generate that surface roughness through basically cleaning the dentin, and as a consequence of using phosphoric acid, the exposure of collagen fibers. And then Nakabayashi established the generation of hybrid layer, the penetration of the adhesive inside the dentinal tubules that are now exposed due to the effect of phosphoric acid. And all of this combined will generate the retention for the bonding agent to stay in place and overall the restoration to stay in place to dentin. So you have two different ways of doing mechanical retention to two totally different substrates, but in this case, we're using the same product. Now, mechanical retention to enamel, in my mind, and this is my opinion, and you can disagree with me, that's fine. But mechanical retention to the enamel is the most important, okay? Because through a good bonding procedure to the enamel, you are going to seal that restoration accordingly. And you want to seal the restoration because by sealing the restoration, you are going to mitigate, not eliminate, but mitigate, reduce the possibility of leakage. That's something that every dentist should work towards. Mitigating the possibility of leakage, because leakage will lead to secondary caries, and secondary caries is the number one reason for failure of composite restorations. And that is very well documented, okay? So whatever we do to reduce the leakage is going to have an effect on the overall performance of the restoration. And sealing the enamel with proper bonding is of the essence, okay? Now, when you think about, and I did talk a little bit regarding phosphoric acid, but nowadays there are different ways to generate mechanical retention to both enamel and dentin. You have phosphoric acid, you have sandblasting, and also you have self-etching materials. And we're going to break down how to use each one of these methods and which one is more effective, okay, on both substrates, okay? They kind of work the same, but they have different effects, okay? Different effects on the different substrates due to basically what enamel is compared to what dentin is regarding, let's say, its composition, all right? Its composition. So let's get into it. Mechanical retention on enamel. I have, talked a little bit about what happens and how it happens, how it came about, the research that Dr. Bonocore did. And he basically established that etching the enamel with phosphoric acid will generate micro roughness.
Sip, 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 sip.
This is still the most valid way to do it. cost-effective way of doing it, okay? I did talk about the different concentrations. In today's world, even though there is a whole history of the evolution of where we started and where we are today, you can rest assured that if you use a 32% phosphoric acid, a 35% phosphoric acid, and a 37% phosphoric acid, if you use any of those concentrations, you're going to be fine. You're going to achieve the proper mechanical surface roughness profile. It doesn't really matter when it comes to these three different concentrations. It will be a matter of availability, and it could be a matter of preference. You can have your very own reason why you prefer to use a 35 rather than a 32 rather than a 37. But I can tell you that discussion is really unnecessary. Bisco has two phosphoric acids. One phosphoric acid that is a 32% is called uni-etch, and a phosphoric acid that is 35% is called self-etch, right? And they vary based on viscosity, okay? The 32% is more engineered towards a total etch procedure, while the 35% is more engineered or designed towards a selective etch procedure. One is thixotropic, the self-etch, and then the uni-etch is more flowable. But that doesn't mean that you cannot use one over the other, or you have to use one for this specific thing and one for the other procedure. It really doesn't matter. It's up to you what you like. We design it in that way to provide a little bit more of a purpose when it comes to selecting a phosphoric acid etch, but it really doesn't matter, okay? Now, dental adhesives have evolved, and they have come to the point where they are self-etch. There were adhesives that wouldn't generate absolutely no surface roughness on the enamel. They were not acidic enough. They just didn't do anything. But when self-etch became something of interest for restorative dentistry, it was established that self-etch could actually etch the enamel. These adhesives have functional monomers that have low pH. They are ionized, and they're capable of etching the enamel. The answer to that is yes. You can etch enamel with a self-etch adhesive, but it's not going to be as good as if you etch it with phosphoric acid. Absolutely not. I just saw a post from a colleague. Her name is Melissa Siebert. I don't know if I'm pronouncing her last name. And she was talking today, or the post that I saw today was about etching the enamel with phosphoric acid. It needs to be etched with phosphoric acid. As simple as that. Just do it. If you're doing selective etch, great. If you're doing total etch, great. Make sure you etch the enamel with phosphoric acid. So self-etching is not as effective. It's getting better. I can tell you that. We might get to the point where using a self-etching adhesive could actually create a good etching profile on enamel. But we're not there yet.
Sip, 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 sip.
It might be more convenient to the dentist, but we're not there yet. And you need to properly bond to enamel in order to seal that enamel, which can help you mitigate leakage. The third way of doing mechanical retention is sandblasting. Can you sandblast the enamel? Yes, you can. And sure, it can work. I will highly recommend that if you're going to use sandblaster to create mechanical retention on the enamel, is one, that you use a hard powder like aluminum oxide, okay? And second, that you use a sandblaster that has water. Now, that requires an initial investment, okay? These sandblasters are not necessarily cost-effective. They do require an initial investment, a few $1,000s. But now you have an instrument that you can not only use inside the mouth and outside the mouth, but you can use it for generating mechanical retention on the tooth structure and also on your restorative substrates. So it's very versatile and interesting to have a sandblaster. Is it of the essence? Absolutely not. When it comes to mechanical retention to the enamel, you can achieve it with phosphoric acid. And the cost of a syringe is negligible when you compare it to a sandblaster.
Sip, 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 sip.
Interesting enough, I have seen people that use they combine sandblasting and then phosphoric acid etching. Is that an overkill? I haven't tested that. We haven't tested that. We feel it's unnecessary. But hey, come here. Phosphoric acid etching of the enamel has worked. You're good. Now let's talk about mechanical retention to dentin. Same story. Phosphoric acid, sandblasting, and self-etching. Okay? Now, when it comes to phosphoric acid etching dentin, things are a little different now.
Sip, 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 sip.
Things are a little different now because dentin contains more organic component compared to the enamel. If you think about the enamel as a structure, the enamel is the hardest substrates that you have in your body, and it is designed to last a lifetime, okay, if we take care of it and whatnot. The enamel has about 90 to 95% inorganic tissue. Hydroxyapatite is hard. You know, it's brittle, but it's hard. It's like a ceramic, right? But when you think about dentin has about 60% inorganic tissue. The rest is organic. So you got collagen. So that's where things get a little dicey because etching the enamel is extremely simple when it comes to the result without any consequence. Etching dentin is a little different because you have more consequences, okay? So the first thing that you're going to do is apply your etchant, which is going to remove the smear layer. It's going to demineralize the dentin. It's going to remove hydroxyapatite. It's going to leave behind, your collagen, and it's going to open your dentinal tubules. And now when you apply your adhesive, you're going to generate that hybrid layer and all of that. But now you created that substrate that has that retention. And now you have the adhesive going inside the dentinal tubules, and when you cure it, it can cling on to it. So you are creating a substrate that will, stimulate mechanical retention. And of course, you're cleaning. And I did mention viscose etchants, and for example, for someone who really likes to etch dentin, we have an etchant called Uni-Etch. And Uni-Etch has this flowable viscosity that is designed for total etch, but also it contains BAC.
Sip, sip, sip.
BAC is benzalkonium chloride, and when we talk about chemical bond, we're going to talk a little bit about MMPs, and BAC deactivates MMP. So, and also it is an antimicrobial, or I want to say a better word, bacteriostatic element that can, will have an effect on creating an inhibition zone and all of that during your bonding procedure. So that's interesting to have BAC incorporated into the formulation. We have that, right? But whatever the case may be, whatever etchant you use, you are going to remove the smear layer. You're going to have an effect on, demineralizing the dentin, and you are going to expose collagen and open dentinal tubules. And that is the ideal dentin to obtain mechanical retention when using a total etch system. Self-etch comes about, and self-etch,
Sip, sip, sip.
basically what it does, and, this is coming from adhesives that have the ability to affect the smear layer, either by dissolving it or by making it more permeable, allowing the monomers to go through it and chemically react with the dentin. They don't expose collagen. They don't open the dentinal tubules, but the bond is there. So the mechanical retention and the chemical interaction is happening simultaneously when you use self-etch. And I got to tell you, If you get up there and say, oh, there is no bond when you use these universal adhesives, for example, that's not true. You do achieve bond. Is it predictable? Yes. Is it, cost effective? Absolutely. Is it, durable? Yes, it is. Oh, you decide to do total etch in order to achieve your mechanical retention and then apply your adhesive to achieve your chemical bond in separate steps. That's fine. That's totally acceptable. But if you use self-etch, you are going to achieve your mechanical retention and your chemical interaction simultaneously. And that is something that is interesting in today's world. Okay? So self-etch on dentin, absolutely. Okay? Now, sandblasting the dentin. Well,
Sip, 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 sip.
there are many different articles out there that talk about sandblasting the dentin. Some of the articles talk about enhancing the bond. Some of the articles talk about not having an impact. I am going to state something here. We have tested specifically aluminum oxide, 27 micron aluminum oxide from a company called Velopex, and the device is called AquaCare. And we tested it in order to see if it enhanced the bond strength using, sandblasting the dentin and then using a universal bonding agent such as All-Bond Universal.
Sip, 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 sip.
We did not see any increase in bonding. We didn't. But one thing that I feel is interesting about using a sandblaster to generate mechanical retention on dentin prior to bonding is the ability that you can clean the dentin without being so as aggressive as if you use rotary instruments, okay? You can be more conservative when you are removing decay and, soft dentin that you want to get rid of. You can have way more control. And also, and this is a little parenthesis, AquaCare has interesting powders. There is one called Silk, which I feel, if you're going to sandblast dentin, you should use Silk.
Sip, sip, sip.
And if you want to know more about Silk, you can definitely look it up, SYLC, and you're going to see how interesting this powder is. But definitely using aluminum oxide is going to generate retention. We did not see a difference between using All-Bond Universal as a standalone adhesive and using, sandblasting and All-Bond Universal as a combination. We didn't see any difference in bond strength, but that doesn't mean that there isn't any benefit. There are other benefits of sandblasting the dentin rather than just bond strength. Okay, this is something to think about. I personally think everybody should be using a sandblaster. Okay, just wanted to say that. Okay, so again, on dentin it's different than on enamel. Dentin is more complex than enamel, but you can still use any of the three elements that you can use on enamel, which is phosphoric acid etch, self-etching adhesives, and your sandblaster. Okay? Let's wrap it up. Mechanical retention to enamel is optimized by phosphoric acid etch. Listen, hopefully, I will not get any kind of comment that tells me that I'm wrong when I'm talking about etching enamel. You need to etch enamel with phosphoric acid, period. Period. I use a laser. Listen, you use a laser, good for you. How many people have a laser? The people that say that probably live in a place where dentistry is very well paid and they can't afford a laser. Or lasers are accessible to most people. But there are countries out there where it is way more difficult to make a living out of being a dentist, and investing in a laser is not that simple. So I do not speak to the elite. I talk to the masses, to the people who are in places where they want to optimize their investment. And you know what? A syringe of phosphoric acid, that's optimizing your investment, period. And Borno Cuore did that without even knowing the impact he was going to have in today's world, where we can say we can bond to enamel effectively, predictably, consistently by using something that is completely accessible to basically anyone on the face of the planet that wants to do restorative dentistry. So you need to stop with your laser. That's bonding to enamel. Mechanical retention to dentin can be achieved by phosphoric acid etching, for sure. But also, it can be achieved by using a self-etch adhesive. Self-etch adhesive doesn't work on enamel, but it does work on dentin. How do I know this? Because of the bond strength values that we're able to gather through our testing. When I use a self-etching adhesive as a mechanical retention material, generating material, and I test bond strength, it's not better than if I use phosphoric acid etch. But when I test the self-etching adhesive as a product that will generate bond, which is basically mechanical retention and chemical interaction on dentin, compared to using phosphoric acid and the adhesive separately, we don't see any difference.
Sip, 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 sip.
We don't. You know, Rolando, he hurt somebody. I don't care. It doesn't work like that. We got people here that I trust more than any guy on Instagrams. So some of you need to stop. Can you combine sandblasting and phosphoric acid etching on enamel? Yes, you can combine it. It's fine. Can you combine sandblasting and self-etching on dentin? Yes, you can. You're not hindering bonding. On enamel, you might be enhancing it. On dentin, you might be enhancing it because some of the data shows that you can. We haven't seen any of that. But to me, the most important thing is that whatever we do doesn't hinder bonding. Self-etch on enamel hinders bonding. Phosphoric acid on enamel, best for bonding. Self-etch on dentin does not hinder bonding. You can use that strategy any way you see fit. Something to think about. We're going to do the beer review. I forgot how you pronounce this. Jeremy, how do you pronounce this thing? Obligatory. What do I think about this beer? Well, my brother.
Sip, 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 sip.
I got to tell you, I am obligated to keep on drinking obligatory. 100%. Didn't match the brewery description. Well, it says classic West Coast IPA, dry hopped with refreshing citrus and pineapple notes. So, you know, when I poured it, Jeremy, the producer, told me, man, that's a dark beer for an IPA. It is dark. It is surprisingly dark, right? Does it feel like is the description like accurate? I want to say yes, because it does have a lot of punch. And West Coast IPA have a lot of punch. They're dry. They're drier than regular IPAs. So it does match. What are we going to give this guy? Well, you know, I was going to give it a 3.8, but because it's local, 15 minutes away from our house or my house, I'm going to give it a 4. Buffalo Creek Brewing, obligatory, IPA, West Coast IPA. We're going to give it a 4 because they're local. I like them. They invited me to sell smash burgers, and by the way, I parked on their patio with a bunch of people and a bunch of tables, and I sold out. So I got to give them some love. So yes, I'm a little bit biased, but this is a good beer. Fantastic beer. You should try it. So, Q&A. Remember to send your questions to bondingandbeer@gmail.com. You can find us on Instagram at Bonding and Beer. You can write your question in the comments. You can send us a DM. You can write a comment on YouTube too. Either way. This is a question from Maria Gonzalez. Dr. Gonzalez. Is intraoral sandblasting really worth it? I've never tried it, but it seems messy and tedious. If you feel that is messy and tedious, maybe sandblasting is not for you. So, like, the benefit of using a sandblaster intraorally, if it's going to make you feel like it's an issue or it's cumbersome, then don't do it. I think that you're saying that it's messy and tedious because you might be using a sandblaster without water. When you use a sandblaster with water, it's simple, it's easy, and it's not messy at all. Okay? It's not messy at all. So, do I feel it's worth it? Yes, if you use it with water intraorally. 100%. I will definitely get a sandblaster if I were practicing dentistry right now. So your second question here is from Dr. Dennis Johnson. What are the most common mistakes that lead to failed mechanical retention?
Sip, 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 sip.
To enamel, not etching with phosphoric acid. That's it. There is too much data that shows that phosphoric acid etching enamel is one of the most important steps in bonding. Not even going to talk about phosphoric acid etching dentin, because that's a preference. Listen to me, Jeremy, come here. Phosphoric acid etching dentin is a preference. It's an option. Phosphoric acid etching enamel is not an option. It's a must. Do you understand that? That's where we're at right now. Whoever tells you you have to etch dentin, you have to do total etch, he's wrong. I'm sorry, he's wrong. You have to etch enamel, he's right. With phosphoric acid, he's right. The most common mistake that lead to failure is not etching enamel with phosphoric acid. In our third question, okay, and this question is for the audience. This is from me to you. What is your go-to phosphoric acid etch? Let us know in the comment. I don't believe that phosphoric acid is a commodity. I think phosphoric acid should be specific and should be tailored and should have features and benefits. It's not a commodity. Phosphoric acid should be designed to, fit your needs and to provide service. I believe in that. Every bonding procedure should be designed and tailored to fit your needs. That about wraps it up for, this episode of Bonding and Beer. I am your host, Rolando Nunez of this here podcast.
Sip, sip, sip.
And thank you for tuning in to Bonding and Beer. And I'll see you next episode. Let's go.